This episode is brought to you by ProMensal. So tell me then, how did you feel when you realised that you, Alison Bray, were going through menopause?
I was really upset. I was really, really upset, and more upset than I could even understand in a lot of ways. I didn't feel ready at all. I still felt really young in my mind and young in body.
Welcome to Series 4 of Thriving in Menopause, brought to you by Prevention Magazine. I'm Andrea Duval, editor of Prevention, and today's special guest will be familiar to any of you who grew up reading Dolly magazine in the 80s and 90s. Alison Bray, welcome.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
So, Alison, at 16, you were the cover girl that every teenage girl wanted to grow up to be. And it's a neat hat trick that you did, because after marrying Cameron Daddo, you disappeared to live in LA for 25 years. So now you're 52,
Yep.
and you've just written a terrific and very honest book called Queen Menopause. But we missed the in-between years. And so in our minds, you're still 16.
I think I have this terrible thing of making women often feel quite old as well when they go, wait, how old are you? And I say 52, and they're like, oh no, I remember you when you were 16. So I apologize to anyone who's all of a sudden feels old that their Dolly cover girl is now 52 and postmenopausal.
So tell me, you've now the mother of 3 grown-up children, and you've had a rich life away from modelling. What have you been doing?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So, look, I arrived in LA and gave modelling a bit of a shake over there. It just was nowhere near the fun I had in Australia. I didn't know anyone. It was a different industry. It was, I think I write in the book, it was the time of Pamela Anderson. I was not a Pamela Anderson looking girl at all. I would show up to, castings for modeling, and I wouldn't wear any makeup, and I'd have my thongs on, and I was the beach girl from Australia, and everyone was done up to the nines in high heels and short skirts and fake boobs. And I just was like, I just don't think this is right for me anymore. And I was really happy to just let that side of my work and that side of me go and head towards something that I always wanted, which was having children. And that had been something I'd wanted since I was a little girl. So it was when I first became pregnant with Lotus that by the time I was 1 month pregnant, I was like, done, out of here, gone, and never looked back. From there, I, of course, had my first baby and became very, very interested in postnatal, prenatal, baby massage, assisting with the birthing process, because I just was so shocked at how many negative stories were explained to me. As soon as I said I was pregnant, I was so excited, and everyone said, oh, well, that's it for the sex life, and that's it for spontaneity, and that's it for your boobs. And, I was like, wow, no one seemed that excited anymore. And, people wanted to convince me to, get this drug and that drug and knock yourself out. And I was just really surprised by it all, because it had been something I'd wanted and looked forward to for so long. So I was really fortunate in meeting someone, and we created a program about pre and postnatal support. I became a massage therapist, so I learned pregnancy massage and baby massage, and I assisted a few couples with their birth experience, which was just an incredible, incredible honor.
A really rewarding experience.
Really rewarding. In fact, it's still in the back of my mind that I may go back to it. Yeah, I keep on, there's the Australian Doula Centre that I keep on circling around, getting my doula license here. So I'm like, oh, gee, I loved it so much. But from there, I just went on to teaching. That was something that I always wanted to do as well, was to work with little kids. Everything obviously was around birth, babies, young children. And from there, I got my early childhood degree and began teaching at a Rudolf Steiner inspired school in Malibu. And that kind of took me all the way through till we moved back to Australia 5 years ago.
So, Alison, how old are your children now?
26, 22 and 16.
Wow, very grown up.
Very grown up, yes. I spent a lot of those years and I say just, which I shouldn't say just, a lot of those years stay at home mum as well, which were some of my favourite years. So I'm very proud of that job as well.
So tell me, what was your first inkling that you might be perimenopausal?
It was a change in my period. It was... it became really erratic, and I was getting a period, once every 2.5 weeks, and then they were really light, and then all of a sudden it was crazy heavy. And then I was it was difficult to know with the mood swings because we were preparing to move back to Australia at the time. And it was such an emotional upheaval. So I didn't connect those two together, but of course that was definitely happening. I didn't have the hot flushes, but it was that, and I had the boob soreness. I had breast tenderness as well. And I think we did a couple of pregnancy tests to see if I was pregnant, which I wasn't, but it was that feeling like I was. So yeah, they were my first two symptoms.
So, it's a cruel thing, isn't it? Some women seem to slide through menopause without too many problems, but that wasn't you.
That was not me, no. And I think that's such an important thing to know as well because, I thought I was going to slide through. I had no other reason to think any other reason why I wouldn't slide through. I thought it was just as simple as, your period stops. Little did I know. And yet, speaking to many women, that is sometimes all that happens. So it's such a, like puberty, like periods, like pregnancy, every woman has a different story. And I know that coupled with that upheaval of moving home, 3 children, a dog, all the emotions that went around that to moving back to Australia and the level of exhaustion that I was running at. And then you throw menopause or perimenopause all into that mix and my symptoms were just crazy. Just really, really the more emotional ones I think were the hardest ones. I had the usual, hot flushes constantly and, I had I didn't have any hair loss. I think I lost some eyebrows in there and grew a beard and had all of those sorts of things, and my hair changed texture. But it was really the emotional toll that it took on me was the hardest by far.
The mood swings.
Yes. And the depression. I really did not expect that at all. And it was I just felt so crazy half the time, and I would look around going, why? I couldn't pinpoint anything to why I felt so upset, so sad, so depressed, so angry. I couldn't put it down to, it's because of this, it's because of that. And you're looking for all those reasons, but I had nothing to be that sad or upset about. And that's what really got me thinking so much more and wanting to find out what on earth is this menopause.
So how did you find out that it was actually perimenopause that was causing all of these things?
Yeah, I had a girlfriend who was a little bit older than me, and she said, sounds like perimenopause. And I was like, no, that's not what it is. I'm sure that's not what it is. And she's like, yeah, I think it is. I think, you might want to check that out. And I didn't for a while. I ignored it, went, nah, don't want to know about it, don't want to hear about it. I'm too young for that. But then once I cottoned on to more of the emotional things and more of what on earth is happening, then I started, down the rabbit hole of Google, which can be helpful in some ways, but it can also be a disaster because there's so much negativity on Google. Like they'll tell you the worst case scenarios usually. And I didn't have any friends that were, while I had some friends that were older, a lot of them didn't have any symptoms and a lot of them weren't sort of really up for talking about it. And I just didn't understand what was happening with that as well. Like, why was this not something that women were shouting from the rooftops about? Why was this not a discussion that should happen in every workplace, in every home, in every relationship, because it felt so huge to me. So, yeah.
We'll be right back after this.
Perimenopause can actually start in your 40s. Declining estrogen production during perimenopause brings on changes to menstrual cycles and often the onset of hot flushes, night sweats, mood swings, and sexual problems. Promensal Peri is specifically designed for perimenopausal women and can help relieve these common menopausal symptoms. Promensal Peri is available at leading pharmacies across Australia and offers a cost-effective treatment at under $1 a day. When things start to change, try Promensal Peri. Always read the label and follow the directions for use.
Okay, we're back. You've got a lovely description in your book of what you assumed that menopause would be. Do you want to share that?
Yeah, I really thought it was just, your period stopped and that was really great and your life continued on and it would be nothing more than that, just something as simple as just your period stopped and hallelujah, tampons were out the window. And
doesn't someone arrive with flowers? And
oh, yeah, that's right. And someone arrives with flowers and goes, congratulations, you're in menopause. But oh, God, no, you sort of like, you say it to someone else and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like a death in the family. You hit menopause. Oh, gosh.
So tell me then, how did you feel when you realised that you, Alison Bray, were going through menopause?
I was really upset. I was really, really upset, and more upset than I could even understand in a lot of ways. I didn't feel ready at all. I still felt really young in my mind and young in body, and I just thought, hold on a minute, this is not what I want. This is not, and there was no stopping it. That was the thing that was curious to me as well. It was like, wow, this just comes on without any kind of like, do you mind if I like take your fertility from you here? It was just really, of a great surprise to me that so many things were changing at such a rapid pace. The libido had gone, my ability to obviously create children, which was, I think that was something that really took me by surprise because I knew I wasn't going to have children anymore, but it was the fact that I could physically no longer have children, and it was as if that choice had been taken from me, and it really upset me. And that, again, it doesn't make any sense. I remember my husband looking at me going, but honey, you don't want to have any more kids. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I still want to be able to if I wanted to.
You want to have the right to choose.
I want to have the right to choose.
Look, in your book, Queen Menopause, at one point you say to yourself, how did I get here? How did I get to midlife so fast? I think that's a question that many of us ask.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if it's more so having had children, because I feel like you measure so much of those years by, oh, my son was 5 when this happened and my daughter was 10. I remember those things through the ages of my children, not just of being a single mom or being a single person rather without a partner. But those years just seemed to flash so quickly through those child rearing years. And it was as I call it, an intermission that I all of a sudden stepped up to and went, okay, this is where you're at now. You're in a different part of your life. And it really took me by surprise. And I really wanted to sort of explore that idea of, well, why is this happening? And could there be something that's actually positive about menopause? Could there be actually something in here for me that feels good and that I can, it could be of service to myself and then to other women?
Which is why it's so good that you've written this book and you've been so honest, because I think that the journey is something that many of us can relate to. And I think to touch on a really, really intimate point for women, we all feel a sense, I don't know whether it's in your 30s or your 40s, where you're aware that you're not perhaps as dewy and youthful as you once were. And at one point in the book, you say there are days where you still feel you're recovering from being a model. And for you, that must have been more acute than most, that the world was comparing you to something that, well, you've moved on. You're a different person now.
Yeah. And that became very much more so in moving back to Australia, because in America, no one had seen a Dolly cover unless you were from Australia. So I was just Ali Daddo. I was Ali Daddo the teacher, or Ali Daddo the who helped with birthing classes. But that all came tumbling down when I moved back. There was perimenopause in full swing, and people going, "Oh, I remember you from, the Dolly years," and it was a funny thing, and I had to really wrap my head around that change. And I had sort of my girlfriend there going, don't be embarrassed about the fact that you're older now, because people want to see you as a more mature woman. Like, that's a good thing. And I thought I was going to be disappointing women the way I looked now, and that I was, as I say in the book, that I've got, nana flaps and a muffin top, that I'm like, those women that had me on their wall, they're going to look at me now and go, oh no, what's happened to you? But yeah, it took me a while to sort of shift that perspective and realize it was more of a privilege than anything to be remembered from Dolly. And I had the most beautiful comment said to me on Instagram when I put out the fact that I'd written this book. And this lady said to me, she said, I got my first period reading about you and watching you on Dolly. And now that I'm in menopause, I get to read your book about menopause. It was just so beautiful. And I was like, oh my God, if there's any reason to write a book about menopause and take all those Dolly readers with me, it's that.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Really lovely. So let's talk the upside. On a good day, you describe menopause as an adventure. So what are some of the up moments?
Well, the changes that I had were really significant, because I felt that I had spent so much of my life being at the bottom of my list. I'd put the children, I'd put my husband, I'd put family, I'd put friends so far ahead of me in the needs that I really demanded. And once I hit menopause, I was like, I actually cannot do that anymore. And it was that was a great revelation for me. And the word no became a big part of my vocabulary, because I'd been a yes girl for so long. And getting to say, no, I just don't want to do that, and be completely fine with it was really freeing for me. And the more I said it, the more I wanted to say it, and the more I loved saying it. And it was a big shift for my husband to be in that role and watching me go, wow, okay, you're not going to go, are you? And I'm like, I don't want to go to that party. I have no need to go to that party. I'm going to stay at home and read a book. And he'd be like, all right, okay, off you go. And starting to spend spending the time thinking about, what do I want? What do I want to do today? What are my needs that I need to take care of was such a revelationary thing for me. And I'm still learning that. I'm still giving myself more time and more care, and that's been a massive plus side for me.
So learning that's kind of tricky, isn't it? Because, we're often told, look after yourself with more me time and make self-care a priority. But as you say, that's new. What does that mean? And what do I like? So How did you navigate that journey?
Yeah, because that's so true. Like it wasn't the first time that, people had said, oh, you need to put yourself first so you can care for your family. But it was really, it was just, there was, I know I felt guilt some of the time when it came to, the children, where there'd be things that I wouldn't do anymore that I had done for them. There was things that and because they were getting older as well, it kind of timed in perfectly. And there were things that I just went, I'm just going to give myself the time to learn something new, or take myself off for a walk, or close the door and go read a book for a couple of hours, and I never would do that. I was always so present in the house. What do you need? What's going on? What can I get you? Do you want a cup of tea? And it was like, no, I'm just going to go close the door and have a nap. I'm going to go close the door and read. And the kids would be like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm totally fine. I'm totally fine. And I'm so happy I'm going to do this. And I think that that's a really good thing to demonstrate to your children in the end of the day, because then they have permission. I mean, they actually were already doing it, but it gives them more permission to do things like self-care.
And it's also leading by example for them when they get to their mid-40s and they've gone, I've got a great role model for that part of my life.
Yes, I hope so. I really hope so. Yeah.
As you so rightly point out in the book, every single woman in the world who's fortunate enough to reach her 40s and 50s will go through menopause, even the Kardashians.
Yes. Well, they're held up as like this epitome of sex and, gorgeousness. And it's like they're gonna get there, everyone. As I say, all the Victoria's Secret models, like everyone that we sort of hold up on this pedestal as like, wow, isn't she just stunningly gorgeous and slim and rock hard abs? They're going to get to menopause. It's going to happen for them. There is no avoiding it. And I think that was really important to me to go, yeah, what am I worried about? They're going to get there too.
Yeah.
I hope they get there. Do you know what I mean? I hope that they make it to that age. So
I found the great quote that I love from your book. So you point out that arriving at menopause is like the complete contrast to other milestones in our life. For instance, when we're pregnant, small outfits get knitted and there are baby showers. But with menopause, you say in your book, it's more like a glass of wine with lots of ice and some tissues. That's as much celebration as women get for entering this new chapter.
Yes. Yes.
We have to reframe that, don't we?
I would love to reframe that. I mean, imagine if it really was something that we celebrated. Imagine if it was something that we could flip into being something that we looked forward to and we knew that it was coming and we were excited about it. And, I mentioned in the book too, and I found that it was so fascinating to me that in cultures where age is really honoured, menopausal symptoms is so much less than in the Western world. And I thought, okay, so what's happening in that regard then? Because as a Western woman, we're so terrified of it. It's a taboo subject. It's looked upon with, great, oh God, it's menopause, here we go. And our symptoms seem to match that feeling in a lot of ways. And yet in the Japanese culture and a lot of the indigenous cultures where the older you get, the more revered you are, I'm sure they're having menopausal symptoms, but it's looked upon as such an honor. And I think, wow, if we could just get some of that going, it would be really, really, really wonderful.
Because as you say, menopause is actually a wonderful beginning in many ways. For example, your ability to go, you know what, I'm going to do things that make me happy and get more real, honest pleasure from your days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of women seem to have an amazing career change often at that age too, and they often go back to things that they were interested in when they were sort of in their 20s is what I found, because they sort of felt railroaded or felt like they had to choose a different career. And so they've stuck out at a career and then gone, you know what, I'm just not happy in this place anymore and go and do something completely different and find a whole new zest for life and a whole new career change. And that's the part that I think is so interesting, and that's the part I think that needs to be talked about so much. And women talk about postmenopausal women talk about having a greater connection with their partner, or changing partners and finding someone really that they're really deeply connected to, or some women end up with other women and find that that's an amazing experience. So there's so much of this time that I think it creates a change that can be really, really positive.
So in terms of your relationship with Cameron, how do you compare it now with what it was perhaps 20 years ago? What are the, you've obviously got a solid foundation there. You talk in the book about the journey, and it's not all been roses.
Yep.
So what's the upside of being postmenopausal and 25 years together?
Yeah.
Or 27 now.
30 years together. Married for 30, but we've been together 32. So, yeah, and he's seen it all. He's seen the full gamut of change. And look, I think there's so much more equality now than there ever was. And it wasn't due to, again, it wasn't due to him enforcing it that way. It was, again, me acquiescing my needs and acquiescing myself in order to make sure his needs were taken care of and whatever he wanted, sort of thing. And not that, I'm making myself sound, dumbed down a little bit, but there was an underlying feeling of that the whole time, and through menopause, it was like, actually, I am equally as important in this partnership, in this marriage, and calling the shots more and again, taking care of what I need. He's always been very good at taking care of his needs and doing his exercise or swimming or whatever he needs to do. And I'm like, I'm going to be more like him. I'm going to be more like him and step up to the plate and do what I need to do. And he was grateful for it. He was like, go you. He was a cheerleader the whole time, which was really lovely.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you say that feeling sexy is an inside job. Forget the Kardashians.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It is. And that's been, again, that's been a work in progress as well. And that was a challenge from being a model where everything was externalized and my self-worth and, was very much looked upon about how I looked, if I looked good in a photograph or not. It was never about what my thoughts were or what my brain was thinking or my opinion. So I had to get through that feeling of, that the outside is not all the all important thing. What is it that's about me internally? What is it that makes me feel sensual, that makes me feel sexy? And it's really is that experience of feeling the confidence in myself and feeling more grounded in myself more than anything that brings out the sensuality. So
now that you're here on the flip side with this grounded sexuality, how's your health now after such a rocky journey? It's nice to know that it doesn't last forever and that there is this fantastic new phase.
Yep. Yeah, I am healthier than I have ever been, I think, or at least for many, many, many years. And there's a strength that I have in my body now that I haven't had for a really long time. And I felt like I was somewhat, not so much pressured into it, but it was sort of like when I saw the decline that seemed to happen really quick with muscle tone and with weight gain, it was like, I better do something about this for my health and for my kids and for my longevity. And so, and that's the thing I've loved, finding new ways to exercise. I mean, Cam and I go ballroom dancing once a week now. I love my Pilates. I've got, a girlfriend that I walk with, and now I'm looking to sort of do, charity walks and things like that, which I never would have thought of doing, 5-6 years ago. So I love that there's been much more of a focus on not so much how I look, but how do I feel? What's my health? What do I need to do for my health? And, going to, before I'd be like, I'll ignore that symptom, or I don't need to go to the doctor for that. Now I'm like, yep, I'm going to the doctor for this. I'm getting my breast exam. I'm doing the bowel cancer checkup. I'm doing it all to make sure that I'm a healthy mid-50-year-old woman.
I think that you've hit on something when you say that on the day that you officially hit menopause, right, 12 months after your last period, there should be a knock on the door with a huge bunch of flowers, confetti, and a lifetime supply of chocolate.
Absolutely.
Yay, us.
Absolutely. I think we should be celebrated just like it's a birthday, because it's a birth of something else, in us. And we could have menopause parties. We could do all sorts of stuff.
Oh, Alison, thanks so much for joining me today. And thanks, listeners, for joining us. And why not pick up a copy of Prevention magazine, which has much more practical information and inspiration for thriving at midlife. I'm Andrea Duval, and I hope to see you next time.